Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Memory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our 2012 Southeastern Conference preview. We're going to take a look at the SEC top to bottom. So let's start with the recruiting trail to see how well these teams recruited this past offseason. Once again, the Alabama Crimson Tide brought in an outstanding recruiting class this year. This class of 2012 may be the one to continue the lineage of great classes. TJ Yeldon, the running back, had an outstanding spring game. A lot of early signees. The one guy that stands out to me the most is Eddie Williams, 6'4", 205 out of Panama City Beach, Florida. This guy is what Alabama needs in their offense. The deep threat, the big receiver, the guy that can control the safeties, can line up anywhere along the offensive front, and provides instant matchup problems for opposing defenses. Auburn needed help along the offensive front, and getting a guy in Jordan Diamond will help this offensive line out tremendously. 6'6", 315-pounder, should see some time as a freshman. Jamichael Winston gives the Razorbacks exactly what they need on defense: size, athleticism, and the closing speed to get to the quarterback. There's a lot to like about Shaq Rowland, a wide receiver for South Carolina. Rarely do you see receivers these days dive for footballs, catching passes away from their body. This guy does a great job of that, and he will do so for the Gamecocks. True freshman running back Keith Marshall may end up starting for the Bulldogs this year. He's that talented and also comes into a great situation out there in Athens. The Tigers needed help at the linebacker core, and Quan Alexander is one of three guys that may actually start as a freshman for the Tigers. I like what I see out of Torrey Bell. Mississippi State got themselves a guy that reminds me a lot of Jason Taylor and what he can do at the line of scrimmage with his athleticism. Dorial Green Beckham was the #1 overall prospect by a lot of different services. This guy has the size you want, 6'6", 220. Reminds me a lot of Plaxico Burress. Ole Miss got themselves a guy in Channing Ward that not only can get after the quarterback, but does a great job in stuffing the run. Once Kentucky gets themselves a quarterback that's consistent, they'll be back in the mix, and they hope they got that in the 6'5", 242-pound Patrick Towles. With his speed and athleticism, Kenny Bynum should fit nicely in that Volunteers linebacking core. The signing of Patton Robinson gives the Vanderbilt Commodores something that they sorely need: a dual threat type of quarterback that can kill you on the ground and also through the air. The Aggies got themselves an outstanding running back prospect, and Trey Williams already possesses two of the most important attributes to be an SEC running back: vision and speed to take it the distance. I already like what I see out of Jonathan Bullard for Florida. This guy is 6'3", 263, can hold his own at the point of attack, so he's going to be a force against the run. Best quarterbacks in the SEC has to go to the Arkansas Razorbacks. They have the best quarterback prospect by far in Tyler Wilson. Throwing the football reminds me a lot of Brett Favre, but also behind him, a guy in Brandon Allen. When Wilson is gone, Brandon Allen, this guy right here, will do a great job of stepping in this place. Two fine quarterbacks out there in Fayetteville. The LSU Tigers have the best running back core, in my opinion. They can go 4 deep at tailback with Spencer Ware. You look at Kenny Hilliard, but I want everybody to keep an eye on an incoming guy, Jeremy Hill. This guy can be phenomenal. Reminds me a lot of Matt Forte and what he brings to the table. You add him to that backfield with Alfred Blue, giving these guys the best quartet of backs in the league. The Vols have the best trio of wide receivers in the SEC. You look at Derek Rogers right there, number 21, Justin Hunter, number 11, returning from injury, and they bring in the #1 JUCO wide receiver in the country, in Cordell Patterson. Keep an eye on that guy. He's going to have a big year. And tight end Michael Rivera is another very sound target. So these guys have 4 guys they can go to. Alabama gets my vote for the best offensive line. You look at Barrett Jones, the guy that's moving from left tackle, in which he played at an all-SEC performance last year, moving down to center. So he has the versatility, he has the athleticism. And look at the other tackle, DJ Fluker, a guy that's a huge mammoth tackle. So I think the offensive line of Bama is one of the best in the SEC. By far, the best defensive line in the SEC belongs to LSU. They have 2 outstanding edge rushers in Sam Montgomery and Barkevius Mingo. Both guys can do a great job of getting to the quarterback. But I like the interior. Keep an eye on sophomore Anthony Johnson. He got a lot of time last year as a true freshman. He's going to help bolster the interior. You can make an argument that the linebackers of the Georgia Bulldogs all will be drafted within the first 3 rounds. These guys are very active in blitzing, stopping the run, and also do a great job in pass coverage, led by their all-star linebacker Jarvis Jones. Even without the Honey Badger, you look at LSU secondary with Eric Reed at the safety, the other safety, and Craig Lawson, and also cornerback Thurl Simon. All 3 guys still give the Tigers a formidable secondary. LSU special teams is one of the best in the country, let alone the SEC. These guys can kick very well. They also can cover, and they can toss any one of those running backs back there and get positive yards on the returns. James Franklin from Missouri gets my vote as the SEC offensive MVP. I love a dual threat quarterback, and he's going to put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses. He also can throw the football very well, cuts back on his interceptions. I think this guy is going to be a fine player this year for the Missouri Tigers. I think Jarvis Jones of Georgia wins the defensive MVP. I love the way this guy plays the game. Solid in all three aspects: rushing the quarterback, stopping the run, and also dropping back in pass coverage. Missouri wide receiver Dorial Green Beckham gets my vote as freshman of the year. At first, I was just going to chalk it up as him being a big guy dominating high school competition. But when you watch him play, you can see the speed, you can see the separation, and does a great job catching the football with his hands. I think he'll fit perfectly in the SEC and put up a lot of big numbers this year as a true freshman. Best pro prospect, in my opinion, goes to Jonathan Banks of Mississippi State. This guy could have came out last year and been a first-round pick, so I think it's inevitable that he will be a first-round pick. Tremendous blitzer off the edge, and when he's matched up with the opposing team's top wide receiver, he definitely holds his own. I have Kentucky finishing 7th in the SEC East. The things I like about Kentucky is that their defensive line is quite possibly the strong suit of their defense, so they will be able to hold their own at the point of attack. They lose a lot of key players at the linebacker position. On offense, they lose a lot of key playmakers, period. They have to find a number one quarterback. However, Max Smith did improve later on in the season. You want to keep an eye on wide receiver LeRod King. But overall, Kentucky has pieces in place, albeit scattered. If they can play consistent football, this team can definitely eke out 6 wins and get to a bowl game. Vanderbilt is a team on the rise. When you look at head coach James Franklin coming in and recruiting very well, one thing he wanted to upgrade was the quarterback position. They did a great job with that. Now they have 3 solid quarterbacks at the helm, and I think that's going to help these guys a lot. They already have a very talented running game, and defensively, they're very stout. So I look at Vanderbilt as a team that no one will want to play this year. I look at Vanderbilt with that strong running game and that defense being active at the line of scrimmage and being active in the pass game. I look for Vanderbilt to go to another bowl game this season. Missouri enters their first year in the SEC, and I like what this team brings to the table. They have an outstanding, dynamic quarterback in James Franklin, who's going to put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses in the SEC. They have an outstanding receiver in TJ Moe, and they bring in an impressive freshman in Dorial Green Beckham. So I think they match up well with a lot of SEC defenses. The problem I have is they have to get better on the offensive and defensive line. If they can do that, they can compete right away. But I look at this team, it's a team that will put up points. It will cause problems to opposing defenses, like I mentioned, but overall this team is a year or 2 away from competing for the SEC East crown because of the fact that they don't have the strength up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Next up are the Florida Gators, and make no bones about it, this team is built defensively. They will be in every ball game this year because of their very good defense. 10 starters return. The question I have is on offense. They have questions at the quarterback spot, the receiver spot, the running back position. If they can answer 2 of the 3 of those questions, this team can definitely move up this list. But right now, I have serious questions about the offense of Florida being able to put up points in a very tough SEC this year. Tennessee is a very scary team in the SEC East. No one wants to face Tennessee. They have an outstanding passing game with Bray, Hunter, and Rodgers. You also toss in the tight end Rivera. The question I have on offense is that can they find a bell cow running back? And the offensive line is athletic, but are they tough enough to handle the rigors of the SEC? Defensively, I think they'll be a lot better than they were last year. They got a new coordinator in there. The schedule is very tough. They got to look out for that first game against North Carolina State. But if they can get past that and through September, this is a team that no one will want to face later on in the season because I think they will be very competitive in the SEC. I have the South Carolina Gamecocks finishing 2nd in the SEC East. When you look at this team offensively, I like the fact that they have Connor Shaw at quarterback. He's going to bring some stability to that position. They have a very stout running game, so they can run the football against anybody. The question has to lie at the receiving corps. Can they replace that guy right there, Alshon Jeffrey? That's the biggest question. Defensively, they will still be stout even though they lose that guy in Melvin Ingram. I like the fact they get Akeem Auguste back, so that's going to help out the secondary. This team is still dangerous. If they can find a receiving threat and also some interior defensive line, play some defensive tackles, this team can challenge Georgia for the #1 spot in the East Division. Murray. Armed with one of the top quarterbacks in the country in Aaron Murray and a very good defense, top 10 defense in the country in my opinion, the Bulldogs have the look of a team that can go back to the SEC championship game. They can figure out how to run the football. They have talented tailbacks in the backfield. They also have outstanding wide receivers in King and Mitchell on the flanks. The question lies again on the offensive line. Can they protect up front? Can they keep pressure from getting to Murray? And if they can do so, this team will be back in the SEC championship game this season with the chance to go to a BCS bowl game. Let's move over to the West now. I have Ole Miss finishing 7th in the SEC West. I like new head coach Hugh Freeze because he has a great track record in turning around programs. He will do the same for Ole Miss, brought in an outstanding recruiting class this year. But I look at what he has to come in and set the tone right away. He has to find an identity on offense and on defense. They're bringing in some outstanding players in this recruiting class. Keep an eye on Bo Wallace, the junior college transfer. He should come in and play right away. He has outstanding ability both running and passing. If they can get everything going, 2013 will look a lot better than 2012 for the Rebels. Next up are the Texas A&M Aggies as they come over from the Big 12. I like what I see on the offensive line. This team has quite possibly and arguably one of the better offensive lines in the SEC. They're solid on both tackles, and that's what you have to have in the SEC. Great offensive line play and defensive line play. I'm not concerned about the running back. What I'm concerned about is the quarterback position. They have to replace Ryan Tannehill. They have solid receivers in Swope and company. And I look at the defense side of the football. They will be able to get pressure, but the secondary is very vulnerable. They have to get that solved in order to compete in the SEC West. The reasons why I like the Auburn Tigers is the fact that they have an outstanding receiving core in Emory Blake and company, and I also like the defensive front. They're a veteran group and they will cause pressure at the line of scrimmage. The questions I have is at the quarterback position. Can they find someone to be the guy? They also lose Michael Dyer, but I like Ontario McCaleb. He has a lot of speed at the position. There's different question marks across this ball club, which is why I have them settled in at the 5th position in the SEC West. But it wouldn't surprise me, and again, I hate to hedge my bets, to see this team surprise some people throughout the course of the season. Head coach Dan Mullen has done an excellent job with the Mississippi State Bulldogs in bringing in a lot of top talent, which is why they were in a bowl game last year. I'm excited to see quarterback Tyler Russell this year, former Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Mississippi. He leads an outstanding passing attack. They have veteran wide receivers, so they should throw the football all around the field. What I like about Mississippi State is their defense. Yes, they lose Fletcher Cox, but these guys will still be a nuisance to opposing offenses throughout the SEC. But keep an eye on Mississippi State's schedule. This team could be 7-0 realistically by the time October 27 hits and they face Alabama. Could make some noise in the SEC West. The Arkansas Razorbacks are sitting in prime position to be a force in the SEC West. Why? Because no one is counting this team to be a top team because of the fact that they lost their coach Bobby Petrino. But John L. Smith is the guy that inherits the keys to a very good automobile. There's a lot of weapons on this offense. There's a lot of speed and aggressiveness on defense. And when you have the best quarterback in the conference in Tyler Wilson, you're going to always be in ball games. Defensively, they just have to make sure they don't give up the big play. If they can do so, Arkansas will put up a bunch of points this year and cause a lot of teams to try to figure out how they can score points to match their output on offense. Alabama is always going to have a talented roster. What I like most about Alabama is that their defense, even though they lose a lot of guys defensively, they played a lot of guys last year, so they're going to be in every ball game this year. Offensively, they lose their big key playmaker in Trent Richardson, but if D. Hart checks out medically, if he's healthy, I actually like him in the backfield. This guy brings that breakaway ability. I like what I saw to A.J. McCarron in the BCS championship game. So Alabama has pieces. What changed this year will be the fact that these guys have to travel to LSU. They have to travel to Tennessee. They have a big game week 1 against Michigan. They can't overlook that. So I look at Alabama as a team that has some questions that they have to answer, especially at the receiver position. If they can answer that, they can really challenge LSU for the #1 spot in the SEC West. I have LSU finishing 1st in the SEC West. Yes, they lose Tyrann Mathieu to suspension. He's gone off the team, but they also gain a quarterback in Zach Mettenberger that can actually throw the football down the field. You team him up with the defense that can get teams off the field on 3rd down and a lot of talent at the skill positions, in particular the running back position, and you have to like LSU's chances going forward in 2012. They can't look past South Carolina in October, and I know everyone has Alabama circled as a de facto national championship game, but they can't avoid to look past the Gamecocks. But overall, I think LSU has the talent, has has a schedule, it has everything that you need and everything that you look for in a team steamrolling toward the BCS championship game.